Okay, beautiful. MK Haley and I having a crystal ball conversation.
This is so exciting.
It's thrilling. So you're saying you had opinions about autism and ADHD.
I had hopes. Trends in diagnosis of ADHD, ADD, autism, as well as general trends in the millennials as a group, are that they need a different type of educational paradigm to thrive, which is less talk, more do.
Okay.
Less lecture-based curriculums and more smaller chunks of hands-on activities. And I think as education tries to adapt to include these types of students in a more mainstream education, it's going to bleed over into education as a whole, which might be a good idea for all students. It's less talk, more do is a better model for all students, whether there's a learning disability involved or not.
Okay. So do you think you could put any kind of concreteness on this? Something measurable by a certain year or something?
It's going to be really hard because there's things really entrenched in academia right now. John Maeda, who former head of the Media Lab at MIT, head of RISD, Rhode Island School of Art and Design, he was brought into that program specifically because he was an out-of-the-box thinker, innovative, collaborative, all this stuff the university said they wanted. 3 years in, they just gave him a vote of no confidence because he's too different than their established paradigms. So I think K through 12 may be a little more accommodating than the university system.
Well, what could we measure?
What could you measure?
What would be a measurable something that we would be able to identify this?
I don't know how you one indicator is how often the child's butt is not actually in the seat.
Okay.
Like
all right.
X hours of school day, how much of that time am I actually standing up or engaged other than sitting and listening?
All right. All right. So it could be out of seat is a measurement.
Out of seat time. It could be field trips.
Could be.
Even if that's just a field trip to the playground on your old school, but it's going out of the classroom.
But I mean, it could be. I mean, a lot of do activities. You know, you're sitting down, but you're still doing. So what if we talked about the time spent in class,
listening
working
versus talking,
as opposed to I guess I would say working versus listening.
Listening, yeah. And working is either with my hands or part of participating in a conversation.
So could it be simply a reduction in lecture time? Would that be?
Well, I would like. Well, that's missing the other half, which is a corollary increase in work time.
Okay.
Because sometimes the teacher would say, sit quietly and read to yourself, which is a reduction in lecture time, but not, I think, moving in the direction I'm predicting.
Okay, so less lecture and more hands-on activity. And do you see this, like, when you say this is happening, like, give me a time frame. I think it's like happening bit by bit over the next 5 years, the next 10 years?
I think it's happening in specialized programs in the next 2 years.
Okay.
Very quickly. Programs that both have the funding and the mission.
Okay.
I think it's bleeding into larger educational in the next 5 to 10 years.
So would you feel comfortable saying that 10 years from now, do you think you could give a measurable percentage? So like there'll be 20% less lecture and 20% more hands-on activity 10 years from now, something like that?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that.
Is that the number you'd pick?
I would hope it'd be more than 20%.
Would you be ready to say?
I'm gonna go 30, Jesse.
All right.
30.
All right. So there'll be 30% less lecture and 30% more hands-on activity.
Right, and also hopefully this is reflected in success in college. Because being able to be sort of an individual thinker,
right,
will ideally translate.
And that's K through 12 we're talking about.
Right, K through 12.
Do you think the same thing would be true for colleges? Because college is very lecture oriented.
Yeah. I think it'll have to be. It'll bleed, but they're much more entrenched in paradigms. So their funding relies on it.
Okay, I won't hold you to that.
Yeah. Well, I've seen a lot of success come when things start at the K through 12 level. Recycling. Yeah, Americans didn't recycle until they got into grade schools, and then they guilted their parents when they came home into recycling. So
yeah,
it'll bleed into larger form.
My daughter's currently an environmental ambassador at her school.
How fun for you.
Very proud of it. Yes. Okay. Anything else to add to that?
Do we need to put a time and a date and a stamp on this?
No, that all happens through magic.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
So I'm optimistic. Now just between me and you, we have to actually make it happen.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Thanks.
Thanks.